Hello and welcome to ThreatWire. My name's Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse, and this is the weekly show where we cover security, privacy, and anything threatening our internets.
Speaking of threatening our internet, Google is looking for your pledge to support a free and open internet. From Google's landing page at google.com/free-and-open, quote, "A free and open world depends on a free and open internet. Governments alone, working behind closed doors, should not direct its future. The billions of people around the globe who use the internet should have a voice." Now, Google goes on to state that, quote, "The International Telecommunications Union, or ITU, is bringing together regulators from around the world to renegotiate a decades-old communications treaty, and that proposed changes to the treaty could increase censorship and threaten innovation." Now, the event Google is referring to is the World Conference on International Communications, and it's happening on December 3rd and aims to review regulations from 1988 concerning telecommunications.
Now, let's take a little step back and understand who these ITU people are, how we got here, and what this might mean for the internet. The International Telecommunication Union, or the ITU, was formed way back in 1865 by the United Nations to coordinate shared global communication technologies, such as radio spectrum and satellite orbits. They also work to improve telecommunication infrastructure in the developing world and establish worldwide standards. Memberships consist of 193 countries and over 700 private sector entities and academic institutions. The World Conference on International Communications, hosted by the ITU in Dubai this December 3rd through 14th, aims to review the current international telecommunication regulations, or the ITRs, which haven't been updated since 1988. Can you believe that? Google's concern is that delegation on these regulations are being conducted behind closed doors, stating only governments have a voice at the ITU. This includes governments that do not support a free and open internet. Engineers, companies, people that build and use the web, they got no vote. Now, this is far from the first time that the United Nations has weighed in on the internet. In June, the Human Rights Council passed resolution affirming that the same rights that people have offline must also be protected online, in particular freedom of expression, which is applicable regardless of frontiers and through any medium of one's choice. The motion was even endorsed by countries that currently censor the internet, including China. Furthermore, in 2011, the United Nations reported that disconnecting people from the internet is a human rights violation against international law. The report went after France and the United Kingdom for their illegal file-sharing three strikes law. I heard about that one. The report protested the trend of blocking internet access during times of social unrest, as we saw in Egypt back in 2011.
That's what drives me crazy. So which is it? Is the United Nations for internet freedom? Or as Google's and others surmise, is the ITU a secretive organization with confidential proposals on internet governance? Well,
sounds like it.
To understand that, let's take a moment to briefly understand how we came to have the internet that we all know and love today, from government to privatized and hopefully open. So, beginning in 1969, the internet was born. The first two nodes, UCLA and SRI in Menlo Park, California, connected to form what would then become the ARPANET, the first packet switch network, and that was set up by the US Department of Defense for use by universities and research labs. Then in 1973, the United States Department of Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, they recruited Vince Cerf from Stanford to go ahead and unify those networks. And his answer was what became RFC 675, or which would later become what we know as TCP/IP. You may know that as the underlying protocol of the internet. In 1989, The World became the first dial-up internet service provider for the general public, because at that time, access was restricted to academic and researchers and the military. It wasn't until 1995 that NSFNet, a network run by, again, the US government's National Science Foundation, ended sponsorship of their backbone services and lifted its final restrictions on commercial traffic flowing over the internet. So there you go, the internet was privatized, hooray! But it's not anarchy. No, the internet, which for the most part is made up of private networks, is ruled by non-government regulatory bodies. I mean, there's several actually. ICANN, for example. That's the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. They're a non-profit organization. They're responsible for, among other things, regulating IP addresses and those top-level domains, you know, like .net and .com.
Yeah.
And prior to their creation in 1998, the US government was completely in control of the internet's domain name system. Furthermore, the IETF, or the Internet Engineering Task Force, is an open organization for the purpose of developing and promoting the standards, and they're made up of volunteers around the world, and it's open membership. And there's also the IAB, the Internet Architecture Board. They actually oversee the IETF, and they used to be part of the US government, but now they're part of the Internet Society.
The Internet Society.
Yeah, they're another nonprofit. They were founded in 1992 by, again, Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, the inventors of TCP/IP.
Jeez.
And their mission is to, quote, assure the open development, evolution, and use of the Internet for the benefit of all people throughout the world, which is kind of awesome.
That is kind of nice.
There's also the IGF, or Internet Governance Forum. That's actually a more recent one. It just spawned out of a forum hosted by the United Nations, and that consists of governments, private companies, civil society, technicians, academic committees, and it's all about open dialogue and issues of internet governance. So the internet so far is not lawless. In fact, numerous laws around the world govern what internet service providers can do, such as the Communications Decency Act, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Safe Harbor, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and these are just United States laws.
Now, from what I understand from this is that the internet has grown from government project to privatized public utility, with access being considered a basic human right. And that's kind of awesome. For this reason, the ITU faces scrutiny, though, as their confidential model flies against the spirit of the internet completely. But not all of the proposals are secret anymore. So there's this website called .nxt.com. It's an information service covering internet policy. They made all of the documents they have related to the WCIT available publicly on November 22nd. Now, they stated that any organization divested with the power to make significant and binding change must be obliged to properly account for the views of those that it is impacting.
Now, Google isn't the only one resisting the ITU. The European Union voted last week in favor of a proposal which would see the EU's 27 nation states, which account for actually nearly 14% of the 193 ITU nations, voting against the ITR proposals.
Now, critics also point out that the ITU has no enforcement. The treaties do count as international law, so states are bound to observe them, but there is no enforcement mechanism if they don't.
This actually isn't the first time that Google has urged citizens to take action. Mind you, on January 18th of this year, Google began protesting SOPA and PIPA, which were proposed US laws which would have censored the web, essentially. And you may remember that also being the day that so many websites around the world went dark in protest, including Wikipedia. 6 days later, the message on Google changed to, quote, "Thank you, Congress. The internet won."
That was pretty awesome. I remember that SOPA day. Didn't we
Hack
black out on
Hack 5
5?
went down.
I thought so. So, can the internet win this round? The only thing an individual really can do is be informed and make their government aware of their concerns. Ultimately, the ITU treaties are voted on by member governments. 1 vote per country, each vote being equal. Now, you can get more information about the WCIT and how it may impact our internet freedom from a couple of different websites. There's google.com/takeaction, whatistitu.org, and protectinternetfreedom.org. All very important websites.
So what are your thoughts on internet governance? Should it be in the hands of the world's governments, the United Nations, the corporations like Facebook and Google and YouTube hosting these services, the communications companies like British Telecom and AT&T who lay the cables, or the citizens? Yeah, this is the hacker bias right here. That's what you're tuning in for. So let us know in the comments.
And with all of that, I'm going to need a huge helping of kittens on the internet pretty soon.
Me too. So until next time, I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And you've been watching ThreatWire. We'll see you on the internet.
So long.
When I say user data, I mean emails, documents, browsing activity, IP addresses, and things of that nature.
Wait, so you're saying that they are sending over public IP address information to the masses?